I got it now. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to the July 1st Walton County Tax Review Committee meeting. We got a fairly long agenda today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Do we have minutes to approve, corrected minutes from June 3rd and minutes for June 17 to consider. Do we have any further corrections to those?
I don't have any.
Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve?
So I'll make a motion, we approve the June 3rd and June 17 TRC minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, the minutes are approved for June 3rd and June 17. Do we have any other announcements this morning? Being none, we'll move right to project review. The first item on our agenda this morning is the Chautauqua Solar Energy Facility. Renee, if you can briefly introduce it for us.
Sir. This is a major development order application submitted by the Planning Collaborative on behalf of Gulf Power, requesting to develop a solar energy facility on 867.88 acres with a future land use and zoning of large-scale agriculture and general ag. The property is located approximately 3 miles east of Highway 331 North from the intersection of U.S. Highway 331 North and State Road 2A and is identified by the parcel IDs in your packet. We'd like to enter the staff report into the record, sir.
So entered.
The only outstanding comments that we have in the packet is landscape comments from staff, and I'll be glad to answer any questions for the board.
Thank you, Renee. Any questions from the guys so far?
I'll turn it over to the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Dana Matthews, and I'm a lawyer in South Walton and represent the applicant, Gulf Power. Gulf Power, as you know, has been a long-term, over almost 100-year company in the Panhandle of Florida, great steward of Walton County and its community, and it's excited about bringing its first solar facility to Walton County. I'd like to introduce some of the project member team that is in attendance today. One on the Zoom is Brian Stankovich. He is the senior director of development. I think also on Zoom is Ken Proctor. He's the environmental specialist, and these gentlemen are available for questions later on. They're not planning on necessarily speaking during the presentation. Also with us today is Bernard Johnson, who's the general manager for the Central District of Florida. You have Juliet Milam, who is the external affairs director. Seated to my right was Brian Eckerd. He's an engineer, but he's also the project manager for the project. And then Shane Buffington, he's also, I believe, on Zoom. He's the project stormwater engineer. I'm sure I think he's been working with Dewberry on this. Also today, we have Alara Mills-Goodshire. She's the planner that has been working hand in hand with staff on different comments. And then my trusty sidekick, Steve Tatum, who has assisted me on the land use issues. As just an overview, the client has got 24 solar farms that they've successfully constructed within the state of Florida, all without any negative impact to the health, welfare, and the safety of the residents and the neighbors that surround those solar farms. And again, as I said, they're excited to bring this project to Walton County. As you know, the county previously, through its comp plan, went ahead and designated certain areas in the county that the county wanted to promote renewable energy sources. And in particular, in North Walton County, under the future land use map, in the category of agriculture, that it is not a permitted use of, and actually the language is that it's a renewable energy operations, and solar farms specifically laid out as a permitted use, and that's policy 1.2.6 of the comp plan. You go to the zoning categories, and as you know, you have general ag and you've got ag, and you look at LDC sections 2.01.02 and 2.01.01, each of which provide for alternative energy resources. That's where this property is located, permitted use, and a primary use for purposes of zoning. So it's already been decided by the county in the adoption of the comp plan and the LDC provisions that these are uses that are compatible with other types of uses that are allowed in the agricultural category. As a overview of the existing conditions and the project itself, and I'll let the consultants get into more detail, but essentially, as Ms. Bradley said, it's an 867-acre parcel owned by Herman Walker. He's owned it for 25 years, I think, something like that. It's a cattle operation. Right? They raise cattle, they fatten them up, they sell them off, and it's an annual deal. That's the current use and has been for a long, long time. The proposed plan is, as you've seen from the site plan, I mean, the solar panels is what they're going to put up. And these solar panels are approximately, they're stanchioned into the ground structurally, 2 feet above grade, 6 to 7 feet above grade, depending on as they turn toward the sun. So that's basically the elevations, if you will, on the site. When the site's completely developed, it is a 98% open space. I mean, and the panel, other than the sanctions in the ground, everything else is open space. And in fact, the landscape plan is to plant turf grass throughout the entire site, which will be maintained by Gulf Power, through their landscape vegetative maintenance people. The site's been studied extensively by Gulf Power's consultants, and any wetlands and any environmentally sensitive areas will not be disturbed and will be buffered appropriately according to the code provisions. There are no odors, chemicals, glare, or noise or any kind of reflections that are going to be caused by these panels that are going to have any deleterious impact on the adjacent property owners. And by the way, there's 19 in particular owners that share a common boundary, and we'll get to that in a minute. It's all identified on that last site plan, little red dots if you've seen them. The structural foundation for these panels are going to be built according to the Florida Building Code for wind load requirements. There's currently a Gulf Power transmission line that, if you've seen from the site plan, that traverses the property. It's been there for many, many years. And unlike a number of these type projects, that they don't have something like that. They got to get easements and do underground to get the energy that they're drawing from the panels somewhere else. Well, here they upload straight to the transmission line. So again, less impact on the surrounding area. The stormwater maintenance plan that has been designed, and Mr. Metadere will be able to talk more about that, I assume, if we need to, has been worked on between my client's engineers and county, as well as Northwest Florida Water Management District. And the current plan exceeds any of those Walton County's requirements for stormwater. In fact, one of the things from the last TRC in March till today, that plan has been updated, and because there was some concerns raised at the last TRC about the current conditions on runoff. And through the engineers, they were able to come up with a better plan, if you will, and a better design that actually reduces stormwater runoff by 16.5%. And again, Mr. Metadere can confirm that. The project, after it's completed, there's, as you know, there's a structure storage building in the middle, it has equipment in it. There's one light there. There's, it'll be 24-hour monitored, but there's not like there's somebody there, every day. So you don't have a people impact. You don't have a traffic impact in the neighborhood. Only people that are coming there would be to maintain the vegetative materials around the site, and then obviously if there was any equipment that needed to be checked on. Is designed so that there will be a perimeter fencing around all the property. It'll be gated, lock gate, so it'll be limited access, private access. It's been designed so that there'll be no impact on the wildlife that is out there, and There was a question raised about gopher tortoises and tortoises at the last meeting. There'll be a full site assessment before there's any development activities as required by Florida law for best management practices. And if there's any gopher tortoises found, then they will be relocated again according to those best management practices. The required setbacks in the zoning categories for ag and general ag as required by the county code is 25 foot in the front, 20 foot in the rear, and 10 foot on the sides. That's what was provided in the original site plan that came before you on March 4th at TRC. There were issues raised at that time about some of the neighbors who lived adjacent to the property and them not having, and there not being any current existing vegetation to the point that you would have full opacity and couldn't see that of what the visual would be on these panels to their view for their homes. So the new site plan that you've got before you, you'll see that it shows where those 19 homes are. There is a 150-foot setback buffer from the property line in depth, and then within that, there's a 25-foot in depth vegetative buffer, and that vegetative buffer in width, if you took the house and you took each side of the house and you went 50 feet outside and you went across the street, that's going to be the length of the 25-foot buffer for the landscape. And the landscape plan has what's required by Walton County in terms of indigenous plants and what have you. That is the primary difference between the last plan is the 150-foot setback with the 50-foot or 25-foot landscape buffer across from the 19 homes and the stormwater. Those are the two primary differences that you've seen since your last time around. The project is anticipated to create, of course, local jobs during the time of construction, and then approximately $300,000 in additional tax revenue for property taxes once it's been completed. Right now, I'd like to, with your, if it's okay, I'd like to have Mr. Eckert come up here. It's a short PowerPoint. He's going to walk you through some of the details in that, and then Mr. Buffington will also make some comments dealing with the stormwater, and then I'll come back up for question and answers, and of course, after public comments, we'd like the opportunity for rebuttal. Okay?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Could you spell your last name for the record, please?
Oh, sorry about that. All right. Thanks, Dana, for the introduction and talking through a lot of where we are today. And if you could go to the next slide, well, I'll start off. And so this is a picture of a few of our sites across Florida. And so as you can see there, we have about 25 across the state. But these are two sites that are located in residential areas. And one actually is located in around agricultural area that you see wildlife flying overhead. There's because these solar sites are passive by nature, these panels sit low to the ground. They don't make hardly any noise, and they we can place them in areas all across the state of Florida and have great success. So
Where is the one in the upper right?
the upper right, that is I think it's not bad. I don't know where that
My
is.
recollection is one of the team members.
Yeah.
Like St. Lucie County.
So so you can go to the next slide. So site specifically, this is our site layout. So as you can see, there we go. As you can see, we've laid out the panels on the aerial, and so we show panels are the dark in the center, and then we have our transmission line cutting through the center of the property. And then, as Dana mentioned, you can see the red dots on the slide, and those are the 19 homes around the property. And you can see that the purple banner, or the purple line up there, that's essentially the 150-foot setback that we've accommodated to, we've incorporated in our design to buffer from the existing homes around the property. So within that, we've also included a 25-foot vegetative buffer. So we also were able to utilize our layout to stay out of any environmentally sensitive areas, but all in all, we do utilize that 150 foot across throughout the site. Okay. So this slide here is a breakdown of what we're actually going to see when the site's developed. So because we're utilizing the 150 foot setback with the 25-foot vegetative buffer, you can see that there's, this is a view from the road, and so you can see that there's a good amount of space outside of the vegetative buffer, and then the vegetative buffer actually blocks a good view of the house. You can't even hardly see it. And then on the image on the bottom side is a post-development image, and you can see the panels up and to the right on there. So wherever we don't have the 150 foot, we are abiding by the county codes to the setbacks that are 25 on the front, and then 20 in the rear, and then 10 on the sides. Okay. And so this is another TrueScape image that we had created, but this gives us a sky level view of the site. So in it, you can see the solar array. We have equipment throughout the site, but essentially we'll collect it all at the collector yard in the center of the property, and then we'll put it back onto the transmission line that bisects the property. So, and then we also have access pathways, which will be used for our maintenance crews that maintain the vegetation. And if anything breaks, we'll go out there and fix it. All right, and so as Dana mentioned, we do have some folks on the call. And so Shane Buffington, he is number 719. I don't know if he's going to present on this slide. If you could unmute him. Yes. All right, Shane, are you out there? He may be on mute. Shane?
Shane, can you hear us?
All right, that's fine. I can talk through this. We'll give one more second. Okay. All right. So as far as our stormwater design goes, you know, we followed all FDPE or FDEP regulations and guidelines. So initially we started with a 25-year, 100-year storm evaluation at the basins across the site, and through further recommendations, we went ahead and increased that study capacity of the rainfall to a 100-year storm to accommodate, and so we found that we did meet all requirements for the 100-year flood storm requirements, which is above county and state requirements. So we were happy to see that, and so we have a lot of benefits from taking a row crop field to a established turf vegetation, and so that's one of the reasons we're saying that, you know, we have an improved water quality and a water quality across the site. So our water quality or water quantity is improved across the site just by us implementing a stormwater management plan, which has not been applied to the site previously during its current use and as agricultural use. So on average, it's about 13% improvement associated with the 100-year storm, which is a more constringent plan. So, all right. All right. As far as the environmental concerns, we have filed a permit with the FDEP, and so we're working through conversations with them and getting through that, and we expect a permit later this year. As far as our Army Corps permit, we do not require Army Corps permit because we are not impacting any wetlands. So because of that, we did reach out to the Army Corps to share our plans, and we did receive back a no permit required letter. And that letter states that we are not required to have an Army Corps permit, as simple as that is. And as far as the Florida Fish Wildlife Conservation, we are planning to file a permit with them when we plan to relocate gopher tortoises that we've identified, and we will do 100%, as Dana did say, when it comes time for that in construction. So we plan to do that. And as far as the other impacts environmentally out there, the one main thing we will be doing as we go through time is mow the grass, and it's simply, we'll send crews out, they'll maintain the vegetation so that it doesn't affect the operation of the panels. And where we can't get a mower to, we will spot use of herbicides. But, we're not putting any kind of nutrient loading into the soil. We're not using pesticides, and so those are all cumulative benefits that the site and neighbors will benefit from ultimately. Okay.
Would you say that the noise from the mowing is going to be the loudest sound impact? Yeah. I mean, that's correct. I mean, as it's, they have to mow we're impacting about fencing in about 600 acres roughly. So as they've got to pass them, and then they got to mow the rest of it. So it's not even like they'll be in the same area all the time. But yes. So, and we provided this slide just to kind of talk through some other benefits of the solar energy centers. So when we bring on a contractor to build this site, typically they have about 200 employees that will come into the area and build the site. And so that's a bit of a economic boost for the areas. These are people that will be building the site. They'll be sleeping in hotels. They'll be eating at restaurants. But ultimately, when construction is done, they'll leave, right? And so we won't have anyone out there manned. No daily traffic. No additional kids in schools. It creates no light at nighttime. It's virtually silent. And one large thing, we don't require any fuel, so no water's needed, no resources. We're not using resources except from the sunlight. So and so ultimately, when the product's finished, we'll increase the property value, which will increase taxes, and so we will pay those on an annual basis according to millage rates and such. So all in all, we're going to be generating enough electricity out there. It'll be 75 megawatts worth of generation, and it's enough to power 15,000 homes annually in the state of Florida. So just to give you a little picture of what that looks like. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
If I may, just a couple quick follow-up. The question about noise, there is a solar battery powered by solar that actually operates to turn the panels during the time that they are adjusting to where the sun is at any given point in time. When they turn, that is the only noise that emanates from these panels. And according to the research, that you have to be standing pretty close to them to hear a low hum. You clearly cannot hear them from outside the boundaries of the property, according to the research. Second, that the setbacks that we were talking about, that is approximately 54 acres has been set aside for no development. Third, that if you haven't seen it, one of the most recent facilities that have been developed by the applicant is over in Jackson County that they just opened recently. I've been there. I don't know if you all have had a chance to see it. It's adjacent to neighborhood across the street with buffers. So those are my final comments. Anything else I can answer for you?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
This project will get a public hearing at the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. However, at this time, while we're not opening a public hearing, we're going to take comments and questions from any member of the public regarding the technical aspects of this particular application. Is there anyone here in the room or on Zoom that wishes to speak this morning? If you would, raise your hand on Zoom. If you'll raise your hand or *9 to get in the queue to talk. We're going to give anyone that wants to speak an opportunity to do so this morning. Who would like to be first? Yes, sir. If you'd come to the podium and state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
My name is David Herring, Herring. I'm the president of the Caney Creek Neighborhood Association there in that community. We have major concerns with the project that's coming into the county, some of it to do with the comp plan. As Mr. Matthews stated, that it's indicated in the comp plan that it allows renewable energy. Well, there's comments in there at the bottom that talks about 70% must remain in agriculture, silviculture, and recreational only. So my question is, where is solar listed in that 70%? My concern is with the 30%, our interpretation of the comp plan, I guess when it was created, was that 30% is to be used to promote agriculture for that farmer or for that operation or for the recreational facility. It's what the county intended. So I say there's an issue with the comp plan at that point. He's talked about water runoff. He's talked about issues with problems that they're having with DEP. DEP has sent their permit back twice because of the water issues. The Indigo plant that he's talking about, Indigo solar panels, I've been by that facility 2 times myself. He talks about there's no glare. I've got pictures of glare that's all over it. The video that he just showed or the images he just showed glare. With the inverters that's inverting the power, we have video that we submitted to the county that puts off that sound and that humming sound, and people can't even talk around it. Where they've got it designed to put the facility to catch the power and send it out the lines, they've got it more towards the neighborhood or where there's more houses at instead of on the other side of the property, which is closer to the county property where there's not as houses and stuff, which would be on the west side of the property. Let's see. So we talk about the buffering. They're talking about, it's their right to do this on this piece of property. What is our rights as a property owner when we get ready to sell this piece of property? We may not have a house on that piece of property at the time, but what allows for the county, it says that we can split up our property and sell it in 10-acre parcels. My question is, how do I sell my property when all you see is solar panels right beside it if I wanted to sell 10 acres to an individual, which then can split it and sell it to a family member if they want to. So there's another house that could be put on that piece of property. So that's why we're requesting the 150-foot setback with vegetation all the way around the property, where you're not limiting any property owner that's around it that owns 300 acres like we do. But you've got other people that own 40 acres. You've got other people that own 160 acres. You're just limiting out just a few houses that's there. They're not gonna come back and re-put that 150 foot. They've met your guidelines, and that's what they're doing. So, that's our concern with the 150 foot in the vegetation, and which it states in the comp plan that if it's not compatible for the area, and it causes glare, which it does, which it causes noise, which is proven, then that's a part of the comp plan that says it's required to be done. The question I had too is with the public hearing today, our public meeting, we've limited the number of people that's allowed to be at this meeting. With the COVID going on, there's members that's in that community, that's older people that are kind of scared to come out to the meetings and all because of it. Well, you limit in the number of people that can attend. We see that there's a problem with Zoom. You can't even talk to one of their members on it. So that's the issue. I've tried to log in on the County Board of Commissioners meetings, not been able to log in on them. So I say right now, we're doing a meeting that's not legal because we're limiting the number of people that can come, and we're also limiting the number of people that can actually participate in the presentation.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay,
What we're doing is absolutely legal.
okay.
We have opened this up to maximum participation.
Which is
and
24.
we are in the middle of a
Which is
COVID-19
24.
crisis. And there's nobody standing on the sidewalk this morning that cannot get into this hearing this morning.
Okay,
So I'm gonna reject those comments,
okay.
because they're just not, consistent with the county
I
policy.
just want to make it on record. That's the way I feel, and I believe
But
that.
I'm gonna push back on that.
Okay,
This is a
well, that's the way I
perfectly legal
feel.
meeting, and anybody is welcome in this meeting, and there's nobody outside that could not
If
get
there was more than 24, that's what I'm saying. COVID going on as well. We've had a spike in the state, which has caused older people not to want to come.
And I appreciate that, but
Okay.
you're here representing those folks.
That's what I'm trying.
And
I'm
by your own
trying.
admission, so let's not go there.
They're talking about animals. They're talking about people that's being able to come into, or the animals that's on the property. They're putting a 6-foot fence around the piece of property with barbed wire on top of it. Tell me how many deer can jump that fence to get in that fence? They're not. They're not going to jump into the fence. They're not going to feed. They're going to cause issues with livestock on our family farm that's eating up our cattle vegetation that we're planting for our livestock. So it's going to increase the number of livestock or wildlife that's going to come on our property to consume. So it's affecting me economically from my cattle operation myself, along with other members that's around this piece of property. So they talk about that they have pictures of deer that's on the property, et cetera. Once they get in, they don't come out. The reason they can't come out is because they can't get back over the fence, or they were locked up in there because they have wooded area that was on the piece of property that they couldn't do anything with. So, with the birds flying over, has been studies shown, birds, et cetera, that's dying or whatever that's flying into them, et cetera, because of the.
Do you have any evidence to
We do,
present?
yes, sir, we do.
I
We
mean,
do.
do you have it this morning? to
I don't have
present that
one this
supports
morning. We
that
can send it.
statement?
We can send it in, yes, sir. We can submit it.
I mean, we're here at the Technical Review Committee hearing, and this is the time to present this, if you
Okay.
have it.
Well, there's been documentation submitted. I don't know what has been reviewed. We have sent information in to you guys. Have you researched it and looked at what we've sent in?
We have looked at everything you've sent
Well,
in.
you're just asking me, do I have it? And I've submitted
But
it.
I'm looking for competent, substantial evidence. You've sent in a number of anecdotal kinds of evidence from different parts of the country,
Okay.
but nothing specific to support the comment you just made.
All right. They're talking about the 200 people that's coming into the area to put in these facilities, okay? As we know, when you bring in people to an area, you cause an issue with people not doing the right things, removing, stealing property, et cetera. And it's been proven that when you bring other people into a community or whatever, they may get sticky fingers. So you're going to have an increase in law enforcement that's going to have to be in that area to make sure that these people are policed. That's the way I look at it. The people will come in, like they said, that they're not going to provide jobs to Walton County. They're providing jobs for people that they're bringing in from the outside to bring them in to put these facilities together. Then they're going to send them out. They may hire a local dump truck companies or whatever to bring them dirt and do things like that, but that's mainly what they're going to hire, looking at the Blue Indigo project it'd have. They talk about that facility. None of y'all have been to that facility as far as I know. So we have asked that county go and look at it. Nobody wants to go look at it. We don't know why. There's an issue with water runoff on that facility. I've been there when it's been raining. They didn't have vegetation planted when they put in the facility. So when you get rains and et cetera, all that sediment and all washes into our creeks and our facilities. Yes, they have the silk fencing to put along of it. I've got pictures of it laying down on the side where it's been washed over and not been picked back up or whatever. So there's compliance issues. They talk about the taxes and the revenues. Okaloosa County had to sue them to try to get tax money, which I'm sure they haven't paid them yet because they probably appealed it to another court because they weren't paying it on Okaloosa County land, or they were saying it was government land, so they weren't required to pay these taxes. So we're bringing in somebody that has a proven record that don't do what they're supposed to do. This power they're talking about creating. The lines are talking about going to Alabama and going to Okaloosa County to provide their feeds over there. Or are they feeding the power to Walton County? So the issue I have, I know this is technical review. I talked about it at the beginning. The 70% says agriculture. The definition of agriculture is something that you can consume, something that you can eat, something that you can have, to feed America. That's what this property is used for. Walton County is trying to get grants right now to promote agriculture, but they're going to put in a 868-acre solar farm, which does away from agriculture. The panels that's coming on the piece of property, we requested from them, they still haven't presented it. What type of panels are they putting on it? Are they made in China, which our government says that China stuff, they're limiting the amount of China electronics that's coming into the counties or into the states in the United States. We've asked about that. They haven't provided us that. They sent back an email to Ms. Pelham saying, we'll provide it to you. We still haven't got that. So that's just some of our concerns, issues. They've talked about the gopher, haven't talked about the bald eagle, haven't talked about the Caucasian woodpecker that's on the piece of property. That's provided information to the federal protection agency that's been provided to them. They're supposed to be submitting studies and all that to them if they know that bird's on there. We're letting them know that them birds are on that piece of property and on the surrounding edges of that piece of property. So it's affecting their information, their life as well. So, all right. Thank you.
Who'd like to be next? Anyone in the audience in attendance this morning would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. If you'd come to the podium and state your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
Dorothy Herring, Herring. David covered a lot of the things that I had put down to cover, but he was talking about the 30% that should be left, for agricultural use or recreational use. In the land code, it lists a number of things that can be used on agricultural property. Every one of those things, except for the solar farm listing, is directly something a farmer can do to promote his business or to aid a service to the community. And when we look at a solar farm, I look at a solar farm as something that, say someone has 6 to 12 chicken houses and their electrical bill is humongous, and they decide to put in a small solar farm to aid their production and cut down on their costs. That would be the way I personally and others have interpreted this. They talk about the noise. There is, and I've sent the articles of places, these systems have been put within a community, a 5-acre one. The noise was so bad that they had to come back, according, I think this was in Pennsylvania, they had to come back and put insulators around their inverters or whatever so that the noise would be cut down in that community. we're talking about probably the largest one this company I know's put in the state of Florida. The rest of them, that was my question a while ago, and I forgot and said, how large are they? 867 acres presents quite a large site for solar farms. And when you think about it, the houses, he said, yes, there's only 19 property owners, but some of us have children that live on that property that have houses. And when you think about this thing comes almost right in the middle. There is houses totally around it. So we're going to be looking, if the buffers are not put all the way around the property, our property, we will be looking at this sea of glass every day. And, you know, I personally don't want to do it. They have not been enough time involved to truly say that solar farms present no health risk, because there have not been enough true studies done on this. There'll be an article come out that says that they are, like leukemia in young children and different things like that, causes nerve problems in adults, and I don't need any more of that. But truthfully, there has not been enough time to study it. If an article comes out, then there'll be another article come out that will rebuttal what was said. And when you really check back, 9 times out of 10, that article that is being rebutted, that information, will be backed or paid for by something to do with the solar company or a company that installs solar systems. So that's our concern. And talking to David mentioned the wildlife. You can drive up in our yard almost any day of the week right now and count 30 deer. I mean, just no problem at all. You can talk to the wildlife guy. He was out there the other day. He experienced it. He saw it, because we're trying to get determination tags. With this fence up, these deer will not have access to this grass to eat on. And when you cut 868 acres of grazing away from wildlife, can you imagine what it's going to do to the surrounding farmers? What kind of economic impact that's going to have on us, just trying to keep grass and things growing for our own cattle. So yes, it's going to make an economic impact to every one of us, not only from the livestock, but from property. They said it was a 75 megahertz plant going in. Well, every time the megahertz is increased, the property that adjoins their solar system, every so many, half a mile or whatever, it decreases the property value for the adjoining property owner. So, I mean,
Ma'am, do we have any appraisal evidence that reflects that?
yeah, I sent a study in, and it was done by a university that did this study.
Where was this? North Carolina?
No, it wasn't North Carolina. I cannot remember. I really cannot. My folder, I wasn't expecting to have all my articles with me today.
But I mean, was this in Florida?
No, it was not in Florida.
Florida has some, we're a different animal in Florida compared to lots of other states. Real estate is valued a lot differently in Florida than it is in other states.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got some information that will support, I mean, a direct value decrease as a result of a solar farm, please provide that to us. And if it's in Florida, please provide multiple copies.
I will try to. Well, I can't provide it, but David went to, Gulf Breeze, the Gulf Breeze area. And I can't present any evidence, but I can tell you what was told to David, and he can reiterate it. The guy said, David stopped to talk to someone that lived right close to the solar farm. And he said, he asked him, he said, well, I haven't seen any decrease in my power bill. And he said, all I know is I got a heck of a deal out of this nice house. And you know why he got that heck of a deal? Because it was located right there at that solar farm, and nobody else wanted to see it.
person chose to buy the house and move there?
He did because he was, I think, a serviceman, and he was looking for a place to live, and it was somebody that probably was not going to be there long-term, but he got a heck of a deal on the house, so.
Didn't stop the sale of the house.
No, it didn't stop the sale of the house, but it stopped the value
But
of the
if-
property.
I mean, and this is a sincere comment. I mean, if you've got some evidence that demonstrates a negative property value impact as a result of a solar farm being developed, please provide that to us, because in all of the stuff that we've received so far, I've yet to see any evidence of that.
Well, I'm gonna be honest
I've
with
heard
you.
lots of people say, I heard or I talked to, but
Mhm.
what we need to find is competent and substantial evidence to support this particular claim. And I'm very interested in hearing that if we can find it.
Okay, well, I dropped the ball. All this that was going on, you know, with COVID and everything, I really just dropped the ball. I had started researching that in the state of Florida. I talked to the people down around Lake City, where that big one's out on Highway 10. And they told me that they were not enough houses right there, had not had enough, you know, be up for sale or anything to be able to tell us. And I did talk to that one realtor, but then, like I said, I dropped the ball because all this started. But I will do that.
Well, I mean, what you just described is what I found in my limited research on this, that there doesn't seem to be any significant evidence of a negative economic impact on saleability of real estate.
Well, put it this way, there was a guy came up, Ms. Mary Wilson's property sits right next to the Walker property. This guy come up and he was wanting to build, he was moving from down south someplace, and he was wanting to build a house. He came that morning, we saw him looking at the property, and then we saw him later that afternoon come back to look at the property. He really liked the piece of property. And we told him, we said, well, you know, in fairness, we want to tell you that there will be a solar farm that will adjoin you right here. And we showed him, you know, it'll be around you like this. He went, oh no, I'm not going to buy this piece of property. He went back over on Long Road and bought a piece of property. So now we personally encountered this with people. So, and it'll be the same thing if we were to decide to sell our property. It would be the exact same thing. That's what people would say. Oh no, if you have a choice, see, we're not getting a choice to go buy a piece of property. We own this piece of property, have owned it. Ron's family's owned it for, it's probably 75 years or longer. And Ron and I bought property that adjoined his dad's property. And, you know, it's not like we're choosing to go live near a solar farm. You know, if you choose to go live by a solar farm and want to get a good deal on a house, that's your choice. But now this has been brought in on us, and I feel like it's a forced thing on us. I'm sorry, Mac, but I just feel like, and it says in the comp plan that it must be compatible to the surrounding area. There is nothing compatible of 868 acres of glass sitting in the middle of our community. And I think David pretty well covered everything. I'm just emotional about the whole thing, so I'm sorry.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, in the back. You'd come to the podium and state your name for the record. Spell your last name, please.
The last name is Pelling, P-E-L-L-I-N-G. Go on record that I agree with everything that's previously been stated. I'm an adjoining property owner. We stand to be very heavily impacted by this. We have only 10 acres, but we are almost completely surrounded. And as Ms. Dorothy said, we're not being given a choice. You know, this is being forced on us if y'all allow it. It's not something we would choose. It's not something anyone else is likely to choose, so we're going to be stuck there. We don't have a bailout plan, those in our community. So please think about that, because you're impacting your citizens, your Walton County citizens, to the benefit of somebody that's not even from here. And I did have some questions, though. On the size, they put up these little pictures and say they've had no complaints. This is a massive solar operation, and I would like y'all to ask them the size on all those others comparatively, because obviously when you upscale, everything increases, the glare, the noise, all of that increases. So I don't think we're comparing apples to apples here, to be honest. I think most of the operations are considerably smaller and affect probably far less people. I had a question about the buffer. It sounds like they're only wanting to do the 25 feet of vegetative buffer right next to our homes. We live in the country for a reason, and most of us don't sit inside our house all day. So that's not much benefit. The other question is, what is this vegetative buffer? They've never told us that. What will it be specifically? I think we would like to know. The other thing we've never been told is what these panels are made of. I did send that in as an email question, and I was told that someone would give me a phone call to answer that. I did decline that offer. I would like it in writing. To be honest, I don't put a lot of stock in what someone tells me verbally that I can't look at and verify. So I don't want a phone call. I would like it in writing. What are they planning to put there? You know, surely there's a brand name, something we could look up, where it's made, what it is, unless they just don't know and they're just, you know, waiting to the last minute to figure it out. But we deserve to know that. It will be very close to our home, which, you know, we're all going to be there. And as far as addressing the wildlife, I would like to go on record as saying I have personally seen a bald eagle within 300 feet of the fence line, directly in front of my home. So I know they're there, or at least they were there. I don't know how these things affect these large birds of prey. I've also seen that rare kite I'm not sure the exact name, but it is a rare kite is what I've been told. I've seen that numerous times. So yes, there are some wildlife there that you can't just pick up and move. And when you put something that massive in the middle of their habitat, also what they're saying about the deer is true. And even if they are given a permit and they have to thin down the deer population to protect their grazing for their cattle, we're still affecting the wildlife population in Walton County. That affects every hunter. So, you know, there's just a lot of angles of impact on our citizens with very little benefit. The other question I would like is, you know, they said there's going to be like 200 people brought in. No one's told us how long construction takes. How long are these 200 people going to be in our neighborhood? You know, and as Mr. Herring said, that brings in a lot of security concerns for most of us because we're not fenced for that, to be honest. We're out in the country. You know, we don't normally have over 200 people from out of town swarming right on our border fence lines that we don't know anything about. We don't know anything about their values. And they're not going to be local people. So we'd just like those concerns to be considered. These are your citizens here, your Walton County citizens who vote and pay taxes here that will be directly affected if this is allowed. And to be honest, I see very little benefit for our county.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience like to speak? Yes, ma'am. You can come to the podium and state your name for the record.
O-N-I-S-H. I am one of the ones, they're talking about the buffer. My parents have the property, Dorothy and Ronald Herring. That part of that property will eventually be mine. My children want to build a house on this piece of property. The buffering won't be there because it's not got an adjoining house across from it now, and Gulf Power has already stated they will not come back and rebuffer. They don't have to once you pass it. So that is one of my biggest concerns. My husband and I are actually looking at building a house in that area as well. So then we have to look at that, if it's not buffered across there to where someone could actually build a house there. I know my brother's daughter wants to build a house there as well. So I mean, that's something that really needs to be taken in consideration as far as this buffering is concerned, as far as putting up a vegetated buffer all the way around this. If it's going to go through, we don't want to see it. And we do want to be able to build these homes that have been in plans. For me and my husband, it's been in plans for 25 years to build a home there. So, you know, it's not like it's just something we've just come up with. And my son would like to move back out to that area and live as well to build a house. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Anyone else here in our audience this morning wishes to speak on this particular item? Yes, ma'am, if you'll come to the podium, please, so we can get your question on the record.
At the last meeting, Gulf Power, I believe, was told that the 150-foot setback and the buffering vegetation, 25-foot vegetation, would be around the entire property. Is that what I understood at the last meeting?
I don't think they were told that, and that exceeds what we can require under the Land Development Code. We're recommending more than what the Land Development Code requires.
Well, it's my understanding, according to your documents, that y'all can require more, and it might not be you.
The Board of County Commissioners can require more. I cannot.
Okay.
I can require what's required in the Land Development Code, but I'm going beyond that and recommending more than what we can require. But once we get to Board of County Commissioners, they can make whatever compatibility determination they choose to make that at least meets the minimum requirements of the Land Development Code.
So what they're proposing, does that meet your requirement?
Meets the minimum requirements. We're asking for them to do more than what the minimum requirements state.
Well, it seems to me, you know, if y'all vote against them, then they'd be glad to do it, but we appreciate it, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Anyone else in attendance here in our audience this morning wishing to speak, ask a question? Yes, sir. One more question.
David Herring again. Question is, you know, new items have been presented back to the county to technical review. When has that been sent out to any of us before we could review that information? They said they worked with you with water issues. Where's that information been shared with us?
Everything that's available to us is available to you through our county website, the Citizen Serve portal. You can see every document we've received.
Okay, we've requested from the county and from technical review all and any correspondence with Gulf Power concerning this project. We haven't received any additional comments. So
I cannot respectively promise you that you can receive notice of anything that we receive in the future. I don't have that authority.
Okay.
And
by state law, it requires when we do a public information request that we have requested legally that says that that's required. So I'm just putting that on.
You cannot ask for a public record in advance of one being created.
It says all and to effect of.
That states anything that exists on the date of your request, yes, applies.
Okay.
But you can't
That will
ask for
be-
something that hasn't been created.
Okay, well, it'll be reapplied for then.
And you're welcome to do that. You can do that every day if
The
you'd like to.
the last thing is the battery storage. From the DEP plans that I see, it says that there's a battery storage facility that will be on this place. From your plans, I don't see where it says battery storage facility is actually indicated on the plans. So can that be clarified to find out what that is? Okay, thank you.
We're going to give the applicant an opportunity to respond to each of these questions in just a minute. Is there anyone else that is attending by Zoom that has a question or wishes to make a comment? Anyone attending by Zoom? Seeing none, Last call for anyone in the audience that wishes to speak before we ask the applicant to respond to these questions. Looks like we've given everyone the opportunity. Mr. Matthews, would you like to respond to these questions?
Mr. Eckert answer a couple of technical questions, and I'll wrap up.
Yes, sir.
Starting with the battery storage.
Yeah, I'll start with that. Brandon Eckerd, ECKARD. And to the question about the battery storage, so we aren't planning to install any batteries on the site currently. However, we've reserved some area where we may put some out there. So we've included that in our design, and it is clearly marked on the plan submitted March 13th to the county. Does that answer your question?
Is that reserving space for some future development?
Well,
Or are we
we're
talking about the technical aspects of whatever that battery storage thing?
no, I mean, so that's the
I
thing.
mean, are you looking to get that approved with this application, or are you just reserving space for a future modification of this application if this gets approved?
That's right, reserving space for a future modification. So we're not including that in the plans at all, just reserving the space.
Okay, but just.
It would be totally separate.
Just to be clear for the audience, that is not part of this application today.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on the plans, it notes future battery storage area.
And is the reason that you don't need the battery storage because you have a transmission line running through the property and you're directly shipping the power out as it's produced?
Right, so as we're generating, we're connecting to the line. But, as you know, technology is advancing way faster than anyone expected. So we want to make reservations so that we can reliably provide power to Northwest Florida, maybe with using batteries. So we don't know how that plan looks, but we just want to make reservations. So I did want to talk about a few of the questions. Glare was brought up in the slide. I don't know if you could pull it up, slide 3. But, that picture up on the far right corner, that's Sweet Bay Solar Energy Center located in Martin County. A little bit further, there we go. This is the picture up and to the right. So this is Sweet Bay Solar Energy Center located in Martin County. So we have residents all along the left of the solar energy facility. That facility is 75 megawatts, the exact same size as what we're planning to install. And typically, that size of acreage, this is another comment that came up is, what kind of size are we putting up there? But this is typically 400 to 600 acres. So depending on the type of topology and just environmental concerns that we have to make, each site is designed differently around those to make sure that we are able to implement our stormwater management plan and meet any requirements we have through the state process. So they all have a unique shape, so they look very differently. You won't find two that are exactly alike. And so that's why they have that unique shape. And so down and to the left, you have Pioneer Trail in Volusia County. And so this is, that's actually agricultural land all around it. And so this site is also 75 megawatts. The 24 sites that we have in operation in the state of Florida are 75 megawatts. So they are all the exact same size as generation. So the acreage depends on panel efficiency, which I can get into in a little bit, but so the size may change just depending on the site. And as you can see, the panels don't necessarily have a glare. They have a anti-reflective coating on them, and they're actually designed to absorb the light. So we have studies from several sites that we can submit, but we have had studies done by engineers that study glare. We have put these sites near airports and haven't had issues. So as far as our DEP process, whenever we apply for a lot of these permits, RAIs, requests for additional information, those are a part of the process. And so this is a very standard process for the FDEP to ask questions and for us to collaborate answer questions and respond and implement their concerns or questions into our design. And so I feel like we've gone above and beyond and incorporated concerns from the neighbors and the DEP and, you know, county comments as well. So as far as the noise studies, we also have noise studies. You know, we've told folks that we've had studies performed and that the noise is non-existent, you know, a perimeter of the site. You know, I mean, it is a large site, but you know, the panels do move, and you know, and you can hardly hear anything. So, but we can provide those. They're performed at Citrus Solar and Loggerhead Solar. So, two of the sites that we have in Florida, in the state of Florida, and that we have analyzed. So, another question came up about the fencing, so that animals can't get over it or under it. So we're proposing a 6-foot fence with barbed wire above it. I mean, we could provide a 7-foot chain link. That is an option. We're open to that. So just to let you know, we are flexible with that. We have made those reservations prior. As far as the question comment on our contractor that we're going to hire to build the site, typically construction takes 6 to 8 months to build these sites, and they apply, and they have qualified candidates that come in. So they'll hire people from all over. So that's just a requirement that we have, and all applicants that want to work for them are willing to, or you know, are open to apply. So one thing that we do have with these sites, and when they're finished construction, they start implementing the stormwater management plan that's permitted through the state. And so a lot of times that takes time. So some comments were said on how Blue Indigo doesn't really have established vegetation, but the fact is that they're just still implementing their plan. So they're planting grass and growing grass, but it takes a while for it to grow, as you know. I'm struggling with grass in my house. But, you know, and then also to the comment of our vegetative buffer, what kind of plants and trees are we putting in that? The answer is to what the county code requires. So we've submitted that on March 13th with our request to comment or answer to comments, and in that we have a full detail of height of trees that we plan to install in the vegetative buffer, the locations of those, but you know, and so one thing we did above and beyond again is had the TrueScape rendering of a street view of what it was going to look like 5 years post-development. So that's something that we aren't necessarily required to do, but it's something we do just to help visually see what this site is going to look like, because it is hard. It's something different to the area. It's new, but you can see after 5 years of growth, you can't even see the house on the left. So.
Can I have your attention? No comments from the audience that aren't made at this podium, please. You're welcome to come to the podium and speak, but none in the audience. We're trying to record this for public record, and the applicant was very respectful to the members of the audience that spoke. Please be respectful to the applicant.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So one other comment that I wanted to speak on is the bald eagles that are close. We did have an environmental survey conducted, and during that survey, the only species found on site was gopher tortoises. So we conducted a partial survey, which GPS located them, and when we go to construction, we'll do a 100% survey of the site to identify all gopher tortoises on the site and relocate them to a mitigation bank in the local area. As far as a bald eagle, it was documented, and we submitted that in our original application, that a bald eagle was sighted, but we did not. No nests were found, which is the big thing we want to look out for. And so a nest is close, is several miles away from the site, but that is several miles away from the site. There were no nests located on the site.
Nothing identified within the 500-foot zone.
You're correct. Yeah, there's an impact area around that nest as you're referring to, correct. So, and one more thing I did want to touch on is the contents of our panels, so how they're made and the type of manufacturer we use. We use tier 1 manufacturers, and so as we go through developing these sites and building them, we don't necessarily have our manufacturers picked out because just that's the way the process works. And so we use tier 1 manufacturers, which are of very high quality, that have a good product, a standing name behind their product. They have warranties, and that's why, you know, we pick tier 1 manufacturers, and so they have a very high quality. And we're Gulf Power. We're not planning to go anywhere. We're going to stand behind our product. We're going to go out there and we're going to reliably cut the grass. And if something breaks, we're going to fix it. We're essentially going to put all this stuff out there and leave. And we're not going to have any additional workers out there. So that's all in all what I have to comments. Are there any more questions from the board?
I mean, we've had numerous questions about the composition of the panels, and recognizing that y'all haven't made that purchase yet for this particular site.
Yeah.
Is there information you could submit just for the record that demonstrates what these panels consist of?
Yeah, I mean, we have information we can submit. You know, they are sealed. You know, there is a perception that the runoff off the panel. You know, that was a question from the first TRC, is going to contaminate the soil and the groundwater, which it doesn't. The rainwater wouldn't penetrate that deep, and so, but the panels all in all are safe for use in our area. So.
Well, there have been a number of questions from those folks that live around there, and if y'all could provide some spec sheets on that,
I'll see what
to demonstrate exactly what kinds of panels are going to be installed out there.
And that's the thing, you know, it may be till later before we actually build, because, you know, just because we get the development doesn't, you know, we're planning to start, but I'll see what we can provide.
I think it would just go a long way to relieve some of the concern from those folks that live around there about what is going to be installed there.
Okay.
If y'all could provide some information on that, I think that would be helpful.
Sure.
Specifically address some specific questions from our public.
With regard to the fence, you mentioned going up with the height. I think the intent was maybe to go down for the deer to be able to jump over. Is there a minimum requirement that Gulf Power has to have 6 foot?
Yeah, it's a safety requirement. So, you know, we have certain requirements because it all is electrical equipment. You know, it's high voltage equipment that we have to protect the public, similar to what you would see at a substation. It's a 6 foot fence with a foot of barbed wire. It's all standard across the board. So you know, above the 6 foot, we have flexibility, but the 6 foot is a minimum requirement that we have to meet, OSHA safety wise. Are there any more questions?
I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to hand it off to Dana. I think he had a few things he wanted to talk about.
A couple quick things that Mr. Eckert didn't address. One, and this goes to comment by Mr. David Herring about the comp plan requirement, and then Ms. Dorothy Herring, that somehow that you can have your own personal little solar farm just to handle your own agricultural activities on the site, and that's what was planned when the county changed the comp plan. That's not what it says. It talks about renewable energy operations, and I think staff has already made that determination, but for the record, legally, this plant is permitted within primary use within the code. The second thing, I own property in North Walton County as well. I'm a hunter. And, you know, yeah, I wish we could get more deer permits and what the state allows. And if it's eating my grass or crops, I mean, you maintain it yourself, or you go get permits to kill more deer if you can. But there's no requirement that agricultural property have fencing. Now, if they wanted to go fence their 100 acres, because they're concerned about deer, eating their grass, they could do that. They're not gonna do that because it's expensive. But to tell your neighbor that you can't fence there so the deer should be able to eat your grass too, I don't understand the logic of that. And I don't think there's any code requirement for that as well. I think, Mr. Carpenter, I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier. I think the applicant has not only met the minimum requirements of the comp plan and the LDC, but has far exceeded that in several categories. And we would ask you to move this to the planning commission level. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I'll start by saying I believe that the applicant has met the minimum requirements of the Land Development Code. But I will also say this is the first renewable energy facility that we have been asked to permit in Walton County. And because of that, we want to be very careful in our review process to make sure that the concerns of the neighbors have been adequately addressed. Concerns of the county have been adequately addressed, and that we essentially all know what we're getting into. I expect that there will be more of these facilities, and that's part of the reason that we're taking our time on this first application to make sure that we identify all of the concerns that might exist, and then we adequately address each of those concerns. This is a site that essentially has had no stormwater, as most working farms do. Having grown up with a working farm, I'm very familiar with that. And ideally, you want to try to keep all of your water on your site for the benefit of your crops. But because most people farm right up to the edge of their property, and occasionally right over the edge of their property, at least from my personal experience growing up on a farm, you want to maximize the amount of land that can generate crops, because that's the whole purpose of a farm. In the context of a solar farm, they absolutely want to maximize the amount of land that's available to generate the energy that they'll be producing on this particular site. We certainly understand that. We have asked for buffers larger than what I think the minimum code requirement would be. And as the comp plan and the land development code both anticipate, compatibility is a subjective issue. We all see it a little bit differently. Compatibility does not mean that everything should be exactly the same. The code does provide the opportunity for the Board of County Commissioners to ask for additional compatibility measures beyond what the code requires, if they see the need to do so. And in that vein, that's where the Planning Department, and I think this Technical Review Committee has gotten to. We believe that we're asking for more than the code requires. I think the applicant recognizes that. I hope the members of the community recognize that. But at the same time, the compatibility measures that we've suggested and the compatibility measures that the applicant have suggested may not be the best idea. And I want to give us an opportunity to make sure that those things are the correct kinds of compatibility measures, and to make sure that there's not a better idea there that hasn't been considered yet. I don't want to foreclose on any better idea related to compatibility of this particular development with the surrounding residential uses and other agricultural uses. We feel pretty confident about what we've asked the applicant to do. We recognize that may be more than what the code absolutely requires. But at the same time, I'm thinking maybe there's a better idea with regard to the buffering that the applicant might come up with. And I think the county would be open to that. Whatever we come up with will not be perfect. It just won't be. But I want to give us the opportunity to get as close to something that would resemble perfect if we can. It's certainly an economic issue for the applicant. I mean, there's a certain amount of land, they need to generate a certain amount of electricity, and to do that, they need to use the land in a certain manner to make the development viable. At the same time, we've got a lot of folks that have lived around there a long time that have enjoyed an agricultural use, which at various times of the year becomes an industrial use that's incredibly objectionable and annoying. That only lasts for a little bit of time during, various seasons of the various parts of the growing season. When you're plowing the field and it's a windy day and it's been dry for a long time, you're in the middle of a dust storm, and everything around your house is covered with a layer of whatever soil is up the hill. I understand that, but that only lasts for a little bit of time. Most of the time, there's nothing happening, and it's incredibly quiet in this particular neighborhood. It's a balance. But this particular use, it will be different than the use that's been enjoyed there for the last 50, 100 years or however much. And it's going to be a little bit different, but it is an allowable primary use in this future land use district and in the land development code zoning for this particular area. So in that context, it is an allowable use. The question is, what do we do to enhance the compatibility of it compared to what's around it? I think the county has taken a position that does our best to provide some measure of compatibility. Will you be able to see this from pretty much any area? Probably. You could see the farm from any area. It's on a hill. There's nothing you can plant on the perimeter of it that will be tall enough to completely obscure this forever. That just is not practical. But at the same time, the applicant has proposed some measures that will soften this particular use from the adjacent use. I believe there may be an opportunity to do something different than what has been proposed that might be better for the neighborhood. I don't know what that is today, but I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to think about that and see if there might be a better proposal with regard to compatibility of adjacent uses. I think the county is in a good spot as far as what we're recommending, but recognizing that that is more than we can require. And we're expecting the applicant to do more than the minimum requirement. But you got a bunch of smart folks working for you over there on the applicant side. You got to make this financially feasible, but at the same time, there may be an opportunity to do something different compatibility-wise that works better for the neighborhood. Second thing, there's been lots of concern about stormwater. And we're going from virtually no stormwater to a stormwater plan. There's been discussion about DEP having additional requests for information. That's a very normal thing. You don't get a DEP permit on the first cut. They just don't mail it back to you based on that first application. Due to change in state law a number of years ago, the county cannot hold up an application waiting for an outside agency permit. That would violate state law. But at the same time, boy, I sure would really like to see that permit. And I'd like to know that the state has blessed the stormwater management plan that would ultimately be in place on this particular project. So in that context, I don't want to hurry this application up. It's too important. This is the first time we've done one of these renewable energy facilities, and this is critically important to everybody that lives around there. And since I can't require this, I'd like to ask the applicant if they would be willing to consider a pause before we get to Planning Commission to allow time for you to reconsider the compatibility measures and possibly propose something else, which I think would be up to the applicant to do, and possibly get closer to that permit issuance from DEP.
Dana Matthews on behalf of the applicant. We respect all your comments today, as well as the neighbors, and that's why we brought a court reporter, so we wouldn't forget what was said today, so that we would be able to get it transcribed and go back. And I mean, there's a lot more people involved in this team and this project other than those on Zoom and here in person, but want to be able to take all those comments back and analyze them and see. And we take your recommendation at heart about if there's any other way to further enhance, if you will, compatibility or compatible land uses. And I don't know the people who are actually handling the permitting with Northwest Florida Water Management District as well as FDEP are not here to actually speak to that. It is a process. We've been told that, it's going to take several more months anyway. So I know you can't require us to wait, but taking a pause, if you want to, I don't know how you want to handle, resetting or setting a PC, but in terms of us being able to get back with the county as to some of these issues, again, formally uploaded into the portal so the public has the right to see any of this, we don't object to that.
Do you have an idea about the permitting process time frame?
I think we were looking toward the end of the year before we can probably get final permits. That's just the way. Actually, Mr. Medidir will probably be able to answer that as well as we are, because he's been involved with some of these conversations with the state agencies. But if I had to guess, you're probably looking at toward the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's a safe assumption. Looking at the basin map, you have 13 different basins that they're analyzing. So and it's 868 acres, like was previously mentioned, and with 13 different basins, and you have natural vegetative buffers, and you have water quality issues, and then you have specific stormwater basins for the impervious areas, which in this case are limited to mainly the interior portion where their transmission hub would be. There's just a lot to review, and then you have the natural features that surround the property. You have the gopher tortoises, the bald eagles, and that thing. So there is quite a review from the state level as part of this. So I would expect 60 to 90 more days, which puts us closer to the end of the year.
And after every RFI and they're responded to, you always seem to get a little closer, as you know, and that's just the way it works. I mean, let me just throw this out there. How about having? I mean, obviously we'd have to get anything to you in advance, but what do you think about November for PC?
I mean, I'd like to be able to ask for those permits before we approved our. I would feel much more comfortable if we were able to ask for the permits prior to approving the project. like we could before the state law changed years ago. But we can't do that unless the applicant would volunteer to do that.
We might, but I can't make that decision, nor can the people that are here with me today make that today. I mean, we've got, this is a public company, so, I mean, there's a hierarchy of people that you have to get authority from. But we could let you know, I mean, fairly quickly.
I can't see anything today that would hold up, at least conditionally moving this project forward. But before we get to the next step, I'd like to see a few things that we've discussed. Certainly, the information on the solar panels.
I made those notes and things, yeah.
That members of our audience have requested. I don't think that's one of those things that is specifically mentioned in the Land Development Code as a standard that we have to meet. But I think in good faith, it would be just to show good faith for the applicant to provide that to address the concern of adjacent neighbors. And I'd like to see what ideas we might be able to present to the Planning Commission as an alternate to what the county's asked for and what the applicant has offered, if there could be one. And with that said, I don't want what our recommendation coming out of the Technical Review Committee to be construed as the only way to get there. And if there is a better compatibility alternative with regard to buffering, I would not have a concern about that being offered to the Planning Commission once we get to that point. The whole idea here is to try to make this project better.
I understand.
For all parties. It's got to work financially for the applicant, but we got to be concerned about compatibility for the neighbor. And the neighbors and the applicant, there may be a better idea that emerges in the next few weeks. I'd certainly hope that there could be, and I'd like to leave this proceeding open, or leave this proceeding with that opening for opportunity.
I think we should be able to get back with you within the next 30 days as to those specific technical issues that were raised that aren't, quote, necessarily required by code, but to give you that additional information and also give us a chance to get with the design team to talk more about if there's any other alternatives to setbacks and buffers than is currently proposed.
And I appreciate that, and I'd like to have, the maximum amount of time available for the neighbors to consider what those
Absolutely.
offers might be, so we don't just rush some new idea in here and
3 days before the Planning Commission, we won't do that.
Exactly.
We don't intend to, we're not.
I want everybody to have an opportunity to see whatever's being proposed, and have an opportunity to comment on that, and have an opportunity to come up with a better idea if we can come up with it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to suggest a motion to conditionally move this to the Planning Commission, subject to receipt of the additional information that we requested related to the solar panels and that aspect of the construction. Would like to see the permit from Water Management District and/or FDEP provided, if that can be provided within the time frame that we're discussing. We'd certainly like to monitor that. We can't require it, but if the applicant could provide that in the intervening time here, I think that would be helpful for everyone and would provide opportunity for the public to review it also. all of which to be provided prior to scheduling for Planning Commission in November. And that date would be November 12th was the Planning Commission date in November.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Back, I'll second that motion based on the technical information provided by the applicant and the willingness to potentially work with the neighbors to enhance the compatibility, if you will, of the project and hopefully present us with that water management district permit.
Any further discussion? We have a motion at the dais. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this motion is carried. It's conditionally approved to move forward to the Planning Commission in November, subject to providing the information as requested.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll take about a 5-minute break before we move to the next item. You ready? Ready? We're going to come back to order for the Walton County Technical Review Committee meeting. This moves us to item number 3 under our project review, the Mac Bayou Development, minor development review by Tim Brown. Tim, if you could introduce it for us.
Yes, good morning. This is a minor development order application submitted by McNeil Carroll Engineering requesting approval to construct a 15,189 square foot 3-story commercial office building and associated infrastructure on 1.76 acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of coastal center. It's located on the north side of St. John's Road, west of Mac Bayou Road, and north of Monarch Drive. This item was continued from our last TRC meeting. There's still a couple minor comments from planning. There's a comment from environmental and from, they're minor, and a minor comment on the floodplain, from the floodplain. Everyone else has signed off on it to this point, and with that, I will turn it over to the applicant. And I'd like to request that the staff report be entered into the record.
So entered. Thank you.
Good morning, Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway. There's a couple of items were addressed yesterday. One was an elm tree, so we have revised landscaping plans. They have been uploaded. The flood zone, we had it on a survey. It wasn't on the plan. That's been on there. I just showed it to Aaron. That's been uploaded, so the building's not within a flood zone. Then the only other comment that I'm aware of is the permeable pavers, and we uploaded literature on that as well, and I've got hard copies of it here that I could leave. So with that being the only outstanding item, we respectfully request that we can at least go to the development order phase and not be continued again. Unless you have questions.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? This is minor development. We're going to take an opportunity to open up public hearing. Anyone in the audience or attending by Zoom wish to make a comment on this particular application? Seeing no one in the audience wishing to speak and no one on Zoom has indicated they wish to comment on this particular item. So we'll close the public hearing and we'll entertain a recommended motion.
Yes, with only that one remaining comment, my recommended motion would be to approve the project pending resolution of that or any other outstanding comments and move it forward to the development order.
All right. We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And if everybody that's on the panel from Zoom could affirmatively vote one way or the other, Karen will be able to record that.
Sorry, Mac, I was on mute. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed likewise? Seeing none, the motion is carried. This item is conditionally approved to move forward to development order, subject to the outstanding comment satisfaction. Thanks, sir. This will move us to item number 4, the Saltwater Residential Subdivision. This is a minor development order application reviewed by Stephen Sean. Stephen, you can introduce it for us.
Yes, good morning. This is a project which was continued from the June 3rd meeting. It is a minor development order application submitted by Interlight Engineering Corporation on behalf of 38 Ventures LLC. They're requesting approval of a development of 5 single family lots on 5.77 plus or minus acres with a future land use of mixed use and a zoning of traditional neighborhood development. The project is located on the east side of South County Road 395, approximately 2.6 miles south of the Highway 98 and County Road 395 intersection. The property is identified by the parcel number in your staff report, which I would like to enter into the record.
So enter.
Planning staff comments have been satisfied. I just want to make note of a couple things. A sidewalk buyout is being requested for approximately 860 feet of sidewalk at $42.90 per linear foot. And I have not had a chance to review any engineering comments, so they are not a part of the staff report. Other than that, I have nothing further to add. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
The sidewalk buyout, is that internal sidewalk or is that?
It is actually both, I believe. It is. Yes.
Includes the 393 requirement? I mean 395, yeah. Okay, so we are or are not buying out 395? We are buying out 395. Okay, thank you. Now, there There was some, I know there was some public comment about the location of the entrance. Can you speak to the location of the entrance and how it interfaces with the hammocks entrance and the conservation easement and wetlands that are present on the site?
Yes, I can. And for the record, I'm David Smith with Interlight Engineering. And the driveway, we've located it as far north as we can because there's a conservation easement that's on the property that will not allow us to locate the driveway further south. And the driveway is slightly off or not aligned with the hammocks entrance. But, you know, in our opinion, with this being 5 single-family residential lots, it will not create an issue because our traffic will be relatively low that comes out and connects to County Road 395. So we can't shift the driveway further south because of a wetland and conservation easement that's in place.
Okay. Public Works, taking a look at that interface?
As far as the location,
Yes.
yeah, we agree with that. I did speak with some of my fellow coworkers on that. We did issue a couple comments regarding the gate. I don't know if you've seen those yet.
I have not seen those.
I think they were uploaded last week, but I don't know the exact date. There seem to be minor, but one of them is the setback is 75 foot from the right-of-way line, and it appears you guys were doing edge of pavement. And ultimately, the turnaround, well, I do realize there's only 5 lots. We would prefer, there's some concern about it queuing if somebody were to try to turn around and there's a car behind them. In the past, I think we've preferred to have some kind of median or an ability for a turnaround that would not block those that were going into the gate, so to speak. Might want to take a look at that. I'm not sure what opportunities you have there, but we do have some concern with queuing into 395. So if you could, like I
So
said.
if we shift the gate further east to address the 75-foot comment, then obviously that would allow even more queuing. And then, but as far as a median there, we would prefer with it being 5 single-family homes, keep it as obviously small as possible and not widen out because we are constricted with conservation easements and wetlands and things on this property. I mean, the majority of the property is wetland, so there are some environmental constraints that we're trying to adhere to as well. So, you know, from our perspective, with it being 5 single-family homes, that the car can turn to the left, back up, and then exit.
You provide, let's say there's a car behind that car that is waiting to get into the gate. Can you provide some kind of, auto turn, but some kind of verification that car can turn around without cars having to back up at that point? You see what I'm saying?
I do, but I think you would still have the same situation with a median.
Well,
If the car is directly
we've looked at some of
behind.
the past projects that
Right.
we have approved, and all of them had some kind of median per se. It may have been a small median, but some kind of median as a turnaround. We have not approved anything that was just a flat out kind of a stub out turnaround. Like I said, I do understand this one's only 5 lots, but we probably need to have some more discussion on that.
And like I said, I have not seen those comments, or I wasn't. So,
Here, I can tell you when they were uploaded Monday, June 22nd.
so just to make sure I'm clear, if there's a little small median,
Well, if you can provide some kind of assurance that, I'm not really sure how you do it, but that you're not going to have cars back up. So
Right.
your car that can't enter now has to get them to back up so they can turn around and back up to do this. That's our concern.
because to me, if you're 75 feet from the right-of-way line, then you're an additional 20 or so feet to the edge of the paving, you have 100 feet of queuing, you could stack 5 cars, we're 5 lots, so.
What about, like a UPS truck or something like that? Could you show us something that they're able to do these maneuvers and it not back traffic up? If you can do that, we'll be fine with it, but we just need
Right.
something to show us.
I agree, okay. I mean, at some point, though, you would make the assumption the UPS truck would have access. But we'll do something. I'm not sure what that is, but we'll do something. Good.
The retaining wall, there is a retaining wall / screening wall that's shown on the plan on the north side and east side. Could you Tell us a little bit about that.
That wall is being used to contain fill, so we don't obviously go off the property along the north side, but there'll also be a screening component to it, so to add to the buffer that we have there to create additional opacity.
Okay. That provides additional screening to the subdivision to the east.
No, that would be to the north.
Well, yeah, I guess sort of northeast.
Yeah, yes, correct, yes.
How tall is that proposed screening wall?
It varies, Mac, but we do have, I mean, it's going to be 4 to 5 feet, but the height does vary just due to the grading.
And that include the retaining wall, or is that above the new grade?
That includes the wall as well. That is the wall plus the screening component. That's the total.
4 to 5 feet, or?
Correct.
Okay.
So the retaining wall's 4 to 5 feet, and then you have a fence on top of it? Is that?
That's correct. That's
right.
correct.
That's what I.
That is correct.
Any other, I noticed our other comments were outstanding at the time. We've gotten engineering comments, traffic comments, and public works comments.
My comments were minor, and I talked with David about them. The main one would be supporting the public works turnaround, and I think he has direction on working with them to get that satisfied. So our comments have essentially been addressed. I didn't issue the letter yet.
Okay.
I didn't issue a traffic letter. There weren't any comments in regards to their study. So
Fair proportionate fair share amount due.
there ought to be an amount due, and when I issue the engineering letter that says everything's been satisfied, I'll provide the prop fair share letter.
Okay. Any other public works concerns about this particular development? Any other questions for us?
Just be happy to answer any questions you guys have for me. And then if there are members on Zoom, I'd like to address those as well, please.
And this is a minor development, so we're going to take the opportunity to open a public hearing and invite anyone in attendance here in the room this morning to make any technical comment or ask any technical question. And then we'll get to the folks that are on Zoom. Anyone in our audience this morning live that wishes to ask a technical question or make a technical comment? Seeing no one in the room, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this particular issue? If you are, please raise your hand. Mr. Smith, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
If you could spell your last name for the record, for the clerk.
Smith.
Thank you, sir. Do you have comments on this application?
Yes. Again, in junction with Sydney and the turnaround, I've been in conversation with Chance Powell, and he has reservations about the turnaround at the entrance. And I don't think we're really dealing with the UPS driver. We're dealing with rental drivers, delivery personnel, and people that will not have the gate code. And I can speak firsthand to that because we have that in the hammock at our gate on a consistent basis. So it isn't the passenger car that's going to be the problem with the turnaround. It's going to be delivery vehicles that will have the issue at the entrance to try to get turned around so that they are not backing out on what I like to call Interstate 395. Also, the other issue I have is with the overall view of that area, with the entrance of the hammock, with Saltwater and Regents Bank. And then the final issue is the how I wrote a letter back in June the 9th in regards to the legal lot split that was done on this property, and I've never received anything back on that or any documentation.
The proposed site is a legal lot.
Oh, well, the split can be you have documentation on the split on the lot? Because that was a single lot, Regents Bank and where they're proposing
Right,
to put
and
Saltwater.
the development order that was approved for the Regents Bank effectively created the lot split by development order. It authorized the division of the property. Did you have some other questions?
Those were the three main ones.
Okay, and I think Public Works has addressed the question related to the entry and the turnaround, and the applicant is going to provide some additional information on that. We addressed the lot, and what was your third question?
As far as the turnaround area there.
I've gotten that one, the lot split, and what was the third issue? I'm sorry.
Well, the interaction between Regents, the proposed Saltwater, and the hammock entrance there, and how that's going to be handled, because it's going to definitely negatively impact the entrance at the hammock. And is there still going to be a crosswalk at that location of the Saltwater?
Get crosswalk shown there on the plan. So the crosswalk connection is, our question is shown on the plan. Connecting over to the multi-use path that's on the west side of County Road 395. Did you have any other questions?
Not at this time.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else on Zoom that wishes to speak on this particular application? If you do, raise your hand or star 9 if you're dialed in by telephone. Have anyone else? Seeing no one, there are no other hands in our audience this morning. We will close the public hearing on this item. Applicant wish to make any comments in rebuttal?
As far as the gate and the turnaround, we can easily slide that 25 additional feet, 20 to 25. And we can add a median in the area in the middle, which then would allow someone to use a keypad and then turn and then do the maneuver we have designed. So I feel very confident we can address that.
And to clarify, I was referring to package deliveries. That's usually what I get anyway, but I wasn't referring to regular postal service or passenger vehicle cars.
But we would respectfully request to move forward. I feel confident we could address that comment. And then my understanding, all other comments have been addressed.
They appear to, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other comments from the committee? We have a recommended motion. Stephen?
Yes, sir. Staff would recommend the motion of conditional approval based on satisfaction of Public Works and engineering comments. Any outstanding?
Thanks, sir. We got a recommended motion. Do we have a motion at the dais?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to conditionally approve this, subject to satisfaction of outstanding comments. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, the motion is carried. This item will move forward to development order, subject to satisfaction of outstanding comments. Thank you, David. This will move us to item number 5 on our agenda this morning. This is the Chateau de Paris minor revision request to approve by development order. It's a minor development reviewed by Stephen Sean. Stephen, if you can identify.
Yes, sir.
Of course.
Yes, sir. This is a minor, minor development application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates on behalf of 30A and 393 Capital Investments, requesting to reconfigure and adjust the lot sizes to replat and sell. The property site is 1.84 plus or minus acres with a future land use of residential and a zoning district of neighborhood infill. The subject property is located on Chateau Lane on the north side of Highway 30A, approximately 2.5 miles west of the intersection of Highway 30A and Highway 98, and can be identified by the parcel numbers in the staff report that I would like entered into the project record, please.
Leonard?
There are some outstanding comments from staff, South Walton Fire, as well as engineering. And I do want to make light of an agreement that has been brought to planning staff attention that does pertain to these, to the subject property. The applicant has received a copy of the agreement as well as the county attorney. I have not received word from either of them as to the extent that it would impact this development or the county in general. Other than that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Question about the environmental comments. The 30A comments noted, but there was a requirement to preserve a certain amount of scrub habitat when this project was originally approved. I'm looking on page 7 of 8 of the staff report. In the environmental review comments.
Yes, sir. I believe that's a point of clarification that I'm going to let Aaron speak to.
Aaron Kraker, environmental planner. We went through the previously approved DO, the Chateau de Paris, and there was a preservation plan included in there and a landscaping plan. There was no clear direction in which way the project was approved. So we put it back on the applicant to provide documentation that they may have regarding the preservation requirement at the time. And we wanted to make sure that whatever was carried out in the original DO carried forward with this one.
I understand. From my recollection, I don't believe there's anything that would resemble preservation remaining on the site now.
Correct.
It had been pretty much scraped clean.
Yes.
Years ago. I would agree that we should impose that requirement to restore that. That was part of the original development.
All right. Going through our file, it was unclear. There's a landscaping plan and a preservation plan, but neither one had a definite approval from what we could find in the file. So, and the DO speaks to preservation, It's one of the older DOs where it's just a checkbox. It doesn't say how much was required to be preserved or anything like that.
Did we address the wall?
Not that I know of. Stephen, maybe you'll speak on that.
It does appear in the demo plan that wall is being removed, if I'm not mistaken.
The wall at the entryway?
Associates. The wall at the entry will be removed, but the perimeter wall around the property will likely remain and be utilized, at least the pilings be utilized in something decorative placed in between the pilings. I believe there was a settlement agreement regarding that wall where it was allowed to remain. And if need be, we can provide that settlement agreement.
Yeah, we'd like to see that.
Okay. And I may as well go ahead and discuss the preservation comment. We've pulled our files, and we will go through those to determine if there was a preservation requirement that was not adhered to. If that were the case, then we will propose a restoration plan for the vegetation that's been removed.
Thanks, sir. This is a minor development. We'll take a moment to open public hearing. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this particular application? Seeing no hands up in the audience, do we have any hands up with our Zoom attendees? Anyone dialed in by Zoom wishing to speak on this particular application? Don't see any hands up there, so we'll close the public hearing. And we'll entertain a recommended motion.
Staff would recommend a motion to continue, specifically in light of the agreement that we have not received word on. I think we need to understand more what that agreement entails.
Along with the litigation settlement that relates to the 7 lots.
Okay. And the agreement that you're referring to is the deed restriction, is that right?
Right, yeah, the emailed document.
Right. We've received that, and we're aware of it. It does appear to be a private deed restriction that pertains to condominium development. We've got a land use attorney that's looking into that, and we'd be happy to address that, and we do not oppose, the continuance to do so.
Something that we can resolve in the next week or so? Or
hopefully so. Are you looking at the second meeting in July?
Well, to a date certain.
I would think the July 15th meeting would be sufficient.
Yeah, July 15th is our next date. July 15th. We'll entertain a motion to continue to July 15th.
Motion to continue to July 15th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is continued to the next technical review committee on July 15th at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Gentlemen?
Mac, for the record, I submitted comments, and I don't have anything that would, on our end, that would prohibit this from moving forward.
Thanks, Sammy.
Yes, sir.
We'll move to the next item. This is number 6, the Big Fish Bike Rentals Office and Warehouse. Minor development reviewed by Tim Brown. Tim, if you can introduce for us.
Yes, thank you. This is a minor development order application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates requesting approval to construct 4,350 square feet of warehouse and 138 square feet of office with associated infrastructure on .45 acres with the future land use of mixed use and a zoning of village mixed use. It's located on the north side of County Road 38, east of Power Way and west of Robert Ellis Street. We have comments from planning, engineering, and public works. I'll entertain any questions you may have, and I'd like to enter a staff report into the record, please.
So entered. Is this the parcel with the treehouse?
In the rear of the building?
Treehouse being removed?
It's not proposed as part of our plan to remove it. If there's a code issue with the treehouse,
It's unpermitted.
it's not permitted.
No, it's not.
I didn't design it.
But yeah, the treehouse needs to go as part of this. Yeah, this is well, we'll hear from the applicant. That's your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Dean Burgess with Emerald Coast Associates. We've read the staff report and feel that we can address the comments in a timely manner. I will speak to the owner about the treehouse, and if in seriousness that needs to be removed as part of the development order, we'll make them aware of that.
That needs to go.
Okay.
We're getting lots of complaints about that.
All right.
No one wants to put their name on it yet, but permanent structure that appears somebody was living in at one time. I don't know if they're Airbnb-ing it.
Find that hard to believe, but you never know.
Staying up there, but it's an odd location for a treehouse. And it doesn't look safe.
I'll pass that along. Be happy to.
This is a minor development. We'll take the opportunity to open a public hearing. Anyone in our audience or dialed in by Zoom wishing to make a comment on this particular application? You'll raise your hand in the audience or raise your hand on Zoom or *9 if you're dialed in by telephone. Seeing none on Zoom and seeing none in our audience here, we'll close the public hearing. Do we have a recommended motion?
Does Public Works or Engineering feel that your comments should hold it up?
Well, one of our comments was the current parking in the county right-of-way on 30A. I know Tim and I spoke about this. This is in addition to the business in the front. We do have some concerns on parking, because if you look at the aerials, all that parking is currently on the site to be developed. So,
Given that we're planning to use every square inch of 30A here in the next 10 years, we need to address that.
If I may interject, that was part of our discussion in the pre-application meeting. That's a non-conforming use, and we are not altering that business in any way. Its non-conformity, will remain as is. The parking that we provided is for the addition that's contemplated with this development order submittal.
Parking on 30A is going to go away at some point.
Right, and my point is that that non-conforming use, if that parking goes away, they would their parking would be removed. And as a non-conforming use, I assume that they would have to figure out how to park it or lose that parking.
Suggestion they might want to consider where they're going to park folks in the future.
So there is a design plan that's approved and that will be constructed to remove that parking?
Not in detail yet, but yeah, the county's going to need all of 30A for transportation purposes. And in certain areas, we don't have very much. And this is one where this particular business is sort of crept out into the front setback over time. We got tables sitting outside now, where that did not exist before these folks purchased this particular business. And we've added bicycle display out front.
Well, I would agree that that use would have to remain as it was as Cocoons back when it was operating as Cocoons. If there's additional tables, if there's additional seating,
Need that space for parking.
that should be
at some
removed.
point.
I think the question from Public Works is, do we do it with this development? I mean, it is a non-conforming use, and they're not proposing to change it, but Public Works is saying, should we deal with this now as opposed to down the road?
Well, it does appear that the proposed parcel is where the parking is occurring right now, a large majority of it, whether it's employees or patrons. So, but we'll defer to the planning department on when you would like to handle that.
I mean, we've got a couple of bike delivery vehicles.
Currently, the bicycle rental is occurring on the piece of property that we're proposing the building. So the idea is to create a building and parking for the bicycle operation, and essentially segregate it from this all-in-one operation that's occurring. So the Brazzoni's Pizza would be as Cocoons operated, and the bicycle shop would be on the back portion of the property.
So ideally, this takes what's going on now and cleans this up.
Yes, that's right. And the bicycle shop would not intermingle with the former Cocoons footprint and property.
Would that change the parking requirements for the warehouse, because it's being calculated as warehouse? And I think we're only providing one space, or two spaces, I'm sorry. Would it require more spaces as a bicycle shop, rental shop?
No, because it's operating as where they fix and repair and prepare the bikes, for rental. So it is operating as a inventory area warehouse.
How many parking spaces are we providing?
2 spaces. And the general public would not visit this particular facility. They call up, order a bike,
Don't they
and
have
it gets
more than
delivered.
2 vehicles now?
For that operation, my understanding is that they have one operator and their vehicle, is there. But that's it.
Quite honestly, I got some concern that what's out there now will fit in this.
I can just discuss with the client, their operation and how much room they need, but from what I gathered in discussing it with them, this facility would give them the space that they need to do what they need to do. And parking was one employee.
We're providing no parking for anybody in Cocoons that works there.
Well, the Cocoons parking, and I agree, is currently out in the right-of-way of 30A.
Yeah, I'm
and
just
that's-
looking for a practical solution to a problem that I know exists in this location. And it may be outside of the code, but this is a business that's historically underestimated its requirements for doing business. We have lots of photographic evidence of that. And I just suggest that for a reasonable operation, they need more than 2 parking spaces shown on their site plan.
We can look into that and see if there's an opportunity to do that, or perhaps make the building a little smaller and provide another parking space.
Or maybe they're parking some vehicles inside the building at nighttime, or if there's parking spaces inside the building, that would certainly be one way to accommodate it. But I just don't think there's enough parking for what they're doing now. And it looks like this will get bigger if we get a big new facility.
I can review that with the client and make sure that they're accommodating what their need is for parking.
My recommendation would be to continue this to the next meeting to give you the opportunity to have that conversation.
I would suggest we go out a month, because the staff report for the next meeting is due next week. So it gives them actually less than a week. It's due next Tuesday. So that's, and we're closed on Friday. So I would suggest we continue just to August 5th.
August 5th.
That'd be fine.
Then we'll entertain that motion.
Motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to continue this project to August 5th, to allow the applicant an opportunity to review the existing operation and make sure that they can fit inside what they're proposing. We have a motion at the dais. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is continued to the August 5th, 2020 Technical Review Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
We'll move us to item number 7, which is Specialty Roofers at Trout Branch Industrial Park. This is a request to approve minor development order, and Tim Brown has reviewed this. Tim, if you can introduce it for us.
Yes, thank you. This is a minor development order application submitted by JP Engineering requesting approval to construct 4,625 square feet of office and 11,125 square feet of warehouse with associated infrastructure in 3 phases on 3.4 acres with a future land use of industrial and extractive uses and zoning of heavy industrial. It's located on the east side of Trout Branch Drive, north of State Road 20 West. We have outstanding comments from planning. Like planning, this inadvertently got routed to South Walton Fire, so as of the date of this report, I don't have any fire comments, but it looks like the only outstanding comments are from planning, and I'd like to enter the staff report into the record, and with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm Matthew Parker, JP Engineering, representing the owner of the property. We reviewed the comments, not a problem to address them. For the fire chief, we worked real closely with him because we were trying to determine if we needed to bring a hydrant down there to this site, which would have been an extension of the city of Freeport water system there. But it was determined that there's an existing hydrant out there on Highway 20 that would suffice and met his distance requirements. And so I do have one question. There was a comment about residential use not being allowed in the industrial park. I don't know if that was just a general comment, but we didn't have any residential use in our submittal. But other than that, we've got no problem addressing the comments, and we'll get it turned back to you early next week, I imagine.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Note on the survey. Okay, I'll get with the surveyor then. They must have had a note on the survey, so that may be whether I'll get that note removed from the survey.
This is a minor development. We'll take the opportunity to open a public hearing. Anyone in the audience or dialed in via Zoom wish to make a comment on this particular application? Seeing no hands up in our room and no hands up on Zoom, we'll close the public hearing. And we'll entertain a motion.
And recommend motion to approve the project pending resolution of all outstanding issues/comments and move it forward to the development order.
I'll make that motion as Tim just stated.
We have a motion at the dais. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise? Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is conditionally approved to move forward to development order subject to satisfaction of any outstanding comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. This moves us to item number 8, which is the Santa Rosa Beach Townhomes. It's been reviewed by Bob Baronti. It's a major development. It'll get a public hearing at Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. If you'd briefly introduce it for us, Bob.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good morning. This is a major development order application, as you said, submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of Long Branch Development, requesting to construct approximately 164 multifamily townhome units and associated infrastructure on 20 plus or minus acres. The property has a current future land use of mixed use with a zoning district. Town Center 1 is located from the intersection of US Highway 98 and Highway 331. Travel west approximately 0.5 miles. Turn north into J.D. Miller Road, and the subject properties are located 1.76 miles north on the east side of J.D. Miller. Can be identified by the parcel numbers found in your staff report. Mr. Chair, I'd like to enter the staff report in the record. The comments are minor. I see there's no reason why we couldn't get these resolved before it moves to the appropriate planning commission meeting. The agent is here to speak, and if you have no further questions for me, I'll turn it over to the agent.
Thank you, Bob.
Good morning. I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering. I'm here to represent the applicant, and I think Bob did a good job of explaining the project. We have received the comments. Don't have any questions or issues with any of them, and we should be able to address them pretty easily and probably resubmit today or tomorrow. We've talked to Public Works already about theirs, and we're comfortable with all those. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Can you tell us about how we're interfacing with the trail system and the Town Center Master Plan?
Yeah, the Town Center Master Plan shows a trail that's actually on the parcel directly south, right along that boundary line. And we have a stub road that ties down to that with 2 sidewalk connections to that property to tie into in the future.
Okay. Any portion of the trail that's in the master plan on this particular site?
No, sir. No, sir. Just to provide access to it from the actual property itself.
Any other questions from the committee?
Thank you.
This item will get a public hearing at the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners. We'll take this opportunity to invite any technical questions or technical comments from any member of our audience or anyone that may be dialed in through Zoom. Anyone wishing to ask a technical question or make a technical comment on this application, please raise your hand. Raise your hand on Zoom or *9 if you're dialed in by telephone. See no one in the audience and no one on Zoom. We'll move to a recommended motion.
Can I just ask a question real quick? Scott, the discharge to the Chat Holly right away, what are we going to do with that? Because we know,
yeah,
one, we're limited, and 2, I think we're 2 or 3 feet deep And there's not much of a swale there already.
We had discussions with Public Works, and we're actually going to redirect the discharge to the southeast to the wetland area.
To the
They
wetland
requested
area.
that, yes.
And that would have been my suggestion.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's what we're doing.
Mr. Chair, pending any objections, I'd like to make a recommendation to conditionally approve pending successful resubmittal of all comments, and when appropriate, move it to its planning commission meeting for its public hearing.
Thank you, Bob. We have a recommended motion. Do we have a motion that dies?
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed likewise? Seeing none, this item is conditionally approved to move forward to planning commission, subject to satisfaction of any outstanding comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And this will move us to item number 9, South Walton Commerce Park Lot 22. Also reviewed by Bob, this minor development. If you can briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a minor development order application submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of Lee Burkham, requesting to construct approximately 4,800 square feet of warehouse space and 1,200 square feet of office space with associated parking and infrastructure on 0.51 plus or minus acres with a future land use of commercial and the zoning district of business park. The property is located from the intersection of US 331 and US 98. Travel east 7 miles, turn north on Serona Road, travel approximately 1 mile, and the property is located on the south side of Serona Road and can be identified by the parcel number in your staff report. Mr. Chairman, there are some minor comments pending any outstanding comments from Dewberry. If there's not, or any questions for me, can I get this staff report into the record and turn it over to Jenkins Engineering?
Thank you, Bob.
Hi, my name is Christy Jones. I'm with Jenkins Engineering. We've had an opportunity to review the comments. They're all minor. There's only 2. And we just want to ensure that if there's any engineering comments that we need to address, that we do handle that.
Yeah, and as Bob mentioned, I haven't seen this one for some reason, but I have confidence in the Jenkins Engineering team that the stormwater will be met. I don't know that we would need to continue. This is a small site plan for that reason. And being that planning only had 2 minor comments regarding the site visibility triangle and maybe a title information, I don't feel like we need to hold it up.
Any other? I'll answer any other questions if you have.
We move it forward subject to
Satisfactory engineering review.
Comments.
That's what I would recommend.
Public Works didn't have any comments on this one.
Thank you.
Any further comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. This is a minor development. We're going to take an opportunity to open a public hearing. Anyone in the audience or dialed in by Zoom wish to make a comment on this particular application? Seeing no one in the audience and no hands up on Zoom, we'll close the public hearing and we'll move to recommend a motion.
Chair, I'd like to make a recommended motion pending successful resubmittal and receiving of engineer comments, and they are successfully addressed, to move this to the development order stage.
Thank you, Bob. We got a recommended motion. Do we have a motion of the dais?
We'll make a motion that we, what is it, tentatively approve, what's the word? Conditionally approve, subject to outstanding comments being met, and then the engineering review being complete, and moving it forward to the development order stage.
We have a motion and a second, and I concur, this is a pretty straightforward project, and didn't expect there would be any significant engineering content. We have a motion and a second at the dais. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this motion is carried, and this project will move forward to development order, subject to satisfaction of any outstanding comments and receipt of the engineering comments. Thank you very much. This will move to item number 10, the Jones rezoning. Reviewed by Bob Baronti, and Bob, if you can briefly introduce this one.
This is a rezoning application submitted by Henderson Engineering and Consulting on behalf of S&L Careen Properties LLC, requesting approval to change the zoning district from residential preservation to low-density residential for future land use to remain the same on residential on plus or minus 16.1 acres. The property is located on the end of Hidden Lakes Drive, approximately 1.2 miles from the intersection of US Highway 98 and Forest Shore Drive, and can be identified by the parcel numbers in your staff report. Mr. Chair, I may need to go a little bit more in depth in this. As you see, I've recommended denial, but since we have published the staff report, I have spoken to the agent, and we've come with instead of starting completely over, we were thinking since the county is not proposing any limitations on the size other than what's already in the comprehensive plan because of the missile training area, the applicant would like to continue this project until the August 19th project to give him time to change the density to meet the comprehensive plan Air Force requirements in that approximately half of the property, and keep the density that the zoning would give him on the western half, and resubmit that and adjust any documents he may need to adjust. And the applicant is here to speak. Have any questions of me before we turn this over?
We have a map that shows the zone overlaid on the proposed.
Yes, sir. It's in the exhibits.
Toward the end of the
It's
staff
towards
report.
the end of, it's the third page of the Air Force's comments. And I couldn't get GIS to make a better one in time.
No, that's what I was looking for.
So I don't think, I didn't run this through legal, but I don't think we'd be imposing any conditions on the rezoning because it's already been, the density of no more than 2 has already been adopted in the comprehensive plan. The applicant agrees. I think that would be the most successful way to move forward successfully.
So you're recommending we continue this?
Continue it to August, what did I say? August 19th, and have him change appropriate documents, get it re-reviewed by some of the review agencies, not necessarily all of them, and then redo it and move forward with the revised instead of just denying it having everything resubmitted and new fees.
I don't think we need that much time, really. I've already done a sketch showing the overlay area, and it looks like we've got a little over 7 acres outside the missile corridor and about 9 acres inside the missile corridor. I've already done the sketch, and I can do a map for that. The only other thing I think I need to address is traffic. And traffic was already approved based on 4 units per acre, so we're just going to be reducing the trips if we reduce that portion to 2 units per acre. I can revise a traffic report probably this afternoon. And I think that's all I need to revise. And I mean, I can do that today, pretty much.
We'll need, and this is on a revised site plan?
No, it's not a site plan. It's just dividing the property into the missile corridor and outside the missile corridor.
But I would still need time for the Air Force, so I could amend the request to the 16th to the first meeting in August.
I don't think I'll be in town for that meeting, so we'll just do the second.
August 19th? Then we'll entertain a motion to continue this item to August 19, 2020, PRC at 8:30 a.m. in this location.
Thank you.
We have a hand up in the back here. This is a, well, it's a rezoning. We'll get public hearings at Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. But yes, ma'am, if you'd like to speak, you come to the podium and state your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Donna Johns, Johns. I have a couple of questions about this property. Number one is, what is their egress and ingress plans? How are you going to get in and outside of that neighborhood?
Hidden Lakes Drive, there's a easement that goes right straight through the property.
Hidden Lakes Drive is a private neighborhood.
It's a public easement.
It's a private road.
There's a public access
Hidden Lakes
easement.
Drive is a private road. I've lived in that neighborhood for 18 years. I've worked with the county for 18 years on this, and that is a private neighborhood, and there is no access from Hidden Lakes Drives into that neighborhood. That is number one. Number two, there's a lot of wetlands there, and as I think you all know, in June of this year, Channel 7 did an article on the wetlands, and it talks about the wetlands are being a part of a barrier that helps prevent major flooding if there's a storm. It acts like a buffer for water as it rushes in. It can slow down. The water actually has a place where it can go in and spread out and rise before it starts flowing into the uplands. And the Wetlands Restoration Project is being funded by the grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Association, Gulf Environmental Funds, which is money that came from the BP spill. So I believe there's a ton of wetlands there, which when I bought that property 18 years ago, I was told that land was not buildable because of the wetlands. So we've got wetlands, we've got no way for them to get into the neighborhood, and I'd like to know about the drainage plans that they have and what sort of buffer that they would plan to use.
Well, a couple of those questions are premature.
Okay.
Stormwater plan does not get addressed at a rezoning. Access to the property, I think, is something that needs to be considered, and the proposed density change as a result of what looks like about 50% of this being in wetlands based on our NWI estimate of that. I haven't looked at the environmental assessment to see if that map is reasonably accurate.
We don't have any plans to impact the wetlands. We're going to attempt to keep all the development out of the wetlands. The survey shows public access easement going down Hidden Lake Drive and also the drive on the west side of the property.
Absolutely not.
We can get a land use attorney to look into that further. But yeah, that's what the survey shows. So, I mean, that's what we're going on.
Do we have any kind of proposed project that would support the statement of need to change
Well, residential preservation, when we first met with the county, we were told that that was probably an error, that it's more for platted subdivisions, and this is not a platted subdivision. It's never been platted. Now, the density says per 1 unit per platted lot. The uses allowed are per the plat, and this has never been platted, so it's kind of a,
Oh, I wouldn't disagree that residential preservation is not the most appropriate category.
yeah.
for
So we're trying to figure,
Right, but anytime we have a proposed land use change, typically there's a requirement for a statement of need. Why do we need to change the land use? And is there a proposed project that would result from the land use change?
well, yeah, there will be a proposed project.
Do we have any idea what it might look like? My guess is you won't be putting. in
Single-family
dwellings,
housing.
but I mean,
And when we first met with the county on this, the county pretty much steered us toward the infill land use, which would be, they told us was the most appropriate. Now, in looking at that, I thought maybe the low-density residential would be more appropriate, being that there's so many wetlands that we really can't build too many houses on there. We don't need the density that infill would allow us. Plus, infill allows some non-residential uses. We weren't planning on any non-residential uses, so we thought that low residential density, 4-to-1, was an acceptable land use, less impact than the infill land use. So we thought that was more appropriate. And even at 4 units per acre outside the corridor and 2 units per acre inside the corridor, still gives us more units than we can put on the uplands, so that's fine. That's not an issue.
Curiosity, where is water and sewer coming from?
There's already, at South Walton Utilities, there's a manhole out there. It runs down Hidden Lakes Drive into this property, and it looks like it goes into the wetland. There was a road built down this, a dirt road years ago, through the wetlands.
No, there wasn't.
There's a dirt road that goes down.
It's not a road that was built. It was a road that people that ride their four-wheelers and stuff have made as they've used it for recreational purposes.
I can drive my truck down it.
I would just like to add, please, that you deny the request to change it from residential preservation, which is what it's supposed to be. I respectfully ask that you deny that they change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make a comment on this particular application? Anyone dialed in by Zoom? We've got a recommended motion to continue this project.
I guess I still stand by that motion because now he's going to need time to make sure of the legal access.
To continue this at TRC to the August 19th Technical Review Committee meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. We got a recommended motion. Do we have a motion at a dais?
Continue to August 19th.
Second.
We have a motion to continue this application to the August 19th, 2020 Technical Review Committee meeting at 8:30 a.m. in this location. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item will be continued to August 19th. That will move us to item number 11. This is the port. It's a minor development reviewed by Renee Bradley. Renee, if you could briefly introduce it for us.
Yes, sir. This is a minor development order application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates Incorporated on behalf of Seaside Community Development Corporation. They're requesting approval to construct 2 additional motel units with associated parking on 0.57 acres. Senate future land use of residential and zoning of residential preservation. Project's located at 215 Quincy Circle and is identified by the parcel IDs in your packet. Staff would like to enter the project staff report into the record. There is some minor comments from planning. Engineering has a few comments. Public Works has no comments on this. Environmental has also reviewed this and has no comments. And I was trying to see if I have fire. And South Walton Fire is also reviewed. With that said, sir, unless you have questions of me, I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you, Renee.
Good morning, Dean Burgess with Emerald Coast Associates. We've read the staff report and reviewed the comments. They do seem minor in nature, and we feel that we can respond promptly to them and hopefully move this toward the development order issuance.
Thank you, Dean. This is a minor development. We'll take the opportunity to open a public hearing. Anybody in the audience or dialed in by Zoom wish to make a comment on this particular application? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. We'll entertain a recommended motion.
Recommend, sir, that we move this forward to the development order once all comments have been satisfied.
Thank you, Renee. We have recommended motion at the dais, or do we have a motion at the dais?
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
2 seconds.
We have a second. Motion is to move this forward to development order stage, subject to satisfaction of all outstanding comments. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is approved to move forward to development order, subject to satisfaction of outstanding comments. Thank you, Renee. That'll move us to the last item on our agenda today. This is item number 12, Emerald Bay Development Phase 3 Residential. Major development reviewed by Renee Bradley. Renee, can you briefly introduce it for us?
Yes, sir. This is a major development order application submitted by Dewberry on behalf of Osborn Investments, requesting approval to develop the property into a 59-lot subdivision on 10.18 acres with a future land use of mixed use and zoning of a coastal center. The project is located approximately 2,900 feet north of U.S. Highway 98 and Emerald Bay intersection, is identified by the parcel ID in your packet.
Thank you, Renee. Want to have the staff report in the record?
Yes, sir, please.
So enter.
Thank you. Planning does have quite a few comments. Some of them are just clarification. This project is going to require a variance for 5-foot side setbacks to run concurrent with this project. We also have some engineering comments, and there was a statement and a couple of comments also from environmental. 911 addressing has lack of road names as well. And I did receive health department comments, which just said it's going to be public water and sewer. And our standard boilerplate conditions is also in the staff report. So I would turn it over to the applicant with that, sir.
Thank you, Renee.
Morning, Cliff Nauer, Dewberry Engineers. So the project's for 59 lots in the Emerald Bay DRI. And I've not had the opportunity to see Renee's comments, so I have no idea what the comments even are. Couldn't tell you. No, ma'am, I haven't seen any comments from anybody. So wish I'd love to tell you that I can address all these, but I don't even know what they are.
Some of these are from January 21st.
So, planning comments, List of parcels provide a list of parcels within 300 feet, provide proof of sign notification. We've done that. That's been uploaded to the portal, and our sign was placed in adequate time for the meeting today. Electronic signature on the survey. We provided a boundary survey that Renee indicated she needed for the property. And apparently the survey was not electronically signed. I could certainly get that done. We created a boundary survey and sent that to her already. And that's also been uploaded. Survey is required to be done with benefit of title. We have a survey with benefit of title. 25-foot wetland buffer adjacent to the lots. We're providing that everywhere except for where we're proposing wetland impacts. And we have a application in process with the DEP and the Army Corps, both. The 5-foot setback that she mentioned a little while ago for the variance. So all of Emerald Bay that's currently built has 5-foot side setbacks and a 5-foot rear setbacks for pools and pool enclosures, and a 15-foot setback for structures. And so that's in their covenants and restrictions. And you might remember 5 or 6 years ago when we had a previous planning director, he made the determination that, the covenants and restrictions of a subdivision no longer apply, basically. And so for that reason, we've gotten variances for the 23 lots that were just built on Cobalt Lane, so that they would match everything else that's in the entire development, and we're proposing the same thing on these.
Okay.
So it would be consistent with everything that's built in the entire subdivision.
But we need the variance to be able to recognize the setbacks and covenants as opposed to the code.
Yes, sir. And we've applied for it already. We have a pre-application that we've already requested.
That's a fairly routine thing, given that we've done it before on this particular development also.
Right. Add a note to the plans that it's within a COBRA zone. That would be pretty easy to do. Provide acreage and number of proposed units on a single-page site plan. We have that on our site data table, so I'm not sure what else would need to be done with that. It's already uploaded. The drawdown table for the proposed units is something that Renee did ask for. And we do have a drawdown table that we can provide her that shows that we have more than adequate impervious area available in the DRI for this phase. We have other phases beyond this, so there's more than adequate impervious area remaining in the DRI. Provide the maximum number of bedrooms for parking. We could certainly provide that. Adjust the impervious surface ratio to relate to phase 1. Not to include multifamily units. We're not proposing any multifamily units. I guess I would need some clarification on Renee, what she needs there. And then provide a 10-foot landscape perimeter, which I thought we already had on the plans, but maybe not. That's all the planning comments. Emergency management, located in evacuation in Zone B. No comments from Public Works. The engineering comment is to provide calculations reflecting the anticipated effects of the proposed improvements on the water level of the receiving wet detention pond. Analysis shall be based on the existing stormwater capacity versus anticipated contribution for this phase of the development. We could certainly do that, but the stormwater for the entire DRI has been in place for over 20 years.
and has permits associated with it that have been in place for well over 20 years. So the permits are valid. They don't expire ever. And so those are all in place. Installation of a water level staff gauge. We'd be happy to do it. Please clarify the road segments for the typical road section 1 versus typical section 2. We only have 2 typical sections for the whole project, and I guess they're asking for what station those are associated with. Clarification regarding the origin of the values used to determine the impervious surface ratio presented in the site data table. Be happy to provide that. I don't know why there's a question on that, but I'd be happy to provide that. Total impervious area associated with the proposed roadway and site data. Again, I think that's part of the site tabulation data that we already have on our one-page site plan. Add a proposed drainage easement between 2 lots. And I'm not sure what the last one is. It says construction plans for Emerald Bay Development, Osborn Investment Company, March 2020.
I think that just references the plan sheet.
Okay.
Right before it.
Okay. But I mean, as far as action items go, it appears that they are asking for an easement and seal on the survey that we provided. And then just clarification on stuff we've already submitted. So I don't see anything on here that scares me. On the environment, there are a few environmental comments, I think 3 of them, referring to lot 60 through 65. That's Okaloosa County. We're not proposing anything to do on those lots.
I think that was just a recognition that
Yeah.
those are outside of our
Yes, sir.
review area.
Show the wetland impacts totals on the site data table. We'd be happy to do that. And then they're referring to the land development code for your 1 unit per 20 acres. And this is part of a DRI. So the number of units that we have are pretty much vested. So there's a table 19.1 in the DRI that regulates the amount. This is all in tract 1. Table 19.1 regulates all open space requirements, all maximum impervious area requirements, and also has reference to the surface waters that were constructed 20 years ago. And so everything we're doing is in compliance with table 19.1. But I'll be happy to answer any kind of questions you guys have. It sounds like there's a few items that need to be addressed, but I don't see any of them being a big one. Any big ones in the list, I guess you say.
They all look pretty straightforward to me. Any additional questions from the committee?
Bill needs to recuse himself.
We'll note that Bill has recused himself as a representative of the applicant's agent. Yeah, make sure that's noted in the record, if you would. Again, this is a major development order. It'll get public hearings at the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Anybody in the audience wish to make a comment on this particular application? Yes, ma'am. If you could come to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Sandra Davis. I live in Emerald Bay on Indigo Loop North. I had a couple of questions. This says 59 lot residential. Explain the density to me. That wasn't mentioned in here. Density per unit, explain that part. It's 10.18 acres.
Yes, ma'am. This is part of a development of regional impact, and there's a table in the development of regional impact that was approved well over 20 years ago that outlines the amount of impervious area allowed within the DRI. It also has a maximum number of residential units allowed within the DRI. And so this is not necessarily calculated the way a subdivision would be if it was outside of a development of regional impact. And so the density of the overall development is listed in the DRI, but it's not considered. The whole project is being done under a clustering provision, and so we have acres and acres of open space and golf course. So the concept of the DRI is not to look at each individual space where residential development's occurring, but to look at the whole picture. And so that's what DRIs do, and that's what we're following.
So on this project right here, how many homes are going to be put in there?
There's 59 units in this phase that we're applying for.
Yeah, on the project that we had, we met over on that street last week.
Yeah, that was a voluntary community meeting that we were not required to have.
And what was stated was homes were going to be built in there.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not going to be condos, and they're not going to be they're going to be long-term, no short-term rentals?
That restriction is not currently in place. We are contemplating amending the compression protected covenants to add that, but that doesn't apply to existing homes, and until it's amended, it won't apply. So these homes will fall under the same covenant that exists currently.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to ask a question or speak on this particular application? Anyone dialed in by Zoom? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of our meeting this morning. Again, this is a major development. It'll get a planning commission public hearing and a Board of County Commissioners public hearing. Do we have a recommended motion?
Yes, sir. I would like to move this project forward based on all comments being satisfied to the Planning Commission once we receive completed comments.
Thank you, Renee. We have a recommended motion to move this forward to the Planning Commission, subject to satisfaction of outstanding comments. Do we have a motion of the dais?
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Jonathan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed likewise? Hearing none, this item is approved to move forward to the Planning Commission, subject to satisfaction of any outstanding comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And this concludes our agenda this morning, and we will stand adjourned.